Hey everybody, we are Francis, Martin, and Robert, and this is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Welcome back to Snakes and Otters. This is episode 46, one of our Code of Honor episodes.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis, sitting in the captain's chair. Welcome back, folks. Oh, I love these episodes. We do such a great job with these Code of Honors. I really am great that we came up with this idea. Each of us takes a quotation. Who knows where we're pulling it from? And somehow we managed to have some universal discussions on all of that.
Because we're men of varied interests and influences.
Renaissance men, we could say.
So it's not always something classical or...
No.
Pop culture sometimes, but not always.
What amazes me is how we always manage to tie all of them together.
Well, yeah, we say that every time we go that we've done it. Always, one of these times we're not, I suppose.
It might be this time.
It might be, but you never know.
But we actually pre-gamed this one a little bit. I think we can make this work pretty well. And I'm just going to dive right in.
Can I interrupt you before you dive in? Just mention that out there, folks, we are in the middle of what I call the blink, or what most people are calling the self-quarantine, stay-at-home because of the
coronavirus.
The coronavirus disease is out there.
Lurking. Yes.
Already turn us into the Walking Dead any moment now.
Oh, I'm quite sure there's enough zombie apocalypse response teams out there. We'll be okay.
You know, one thing that this whole crisis has shown to be false. And that is when the apocalypse comes, it's not going to happen in 20 minutes, like in all the movies.
Yes.
Apparently, this is going to be a slow slide into the apocalypse.
Yes.
That's right.
It's going to be quite the drip into the apocalypse.
It is, but we're doing great today. Drinking our bourbon
far.
here. Yeah, that's right. We haven't run out of bourbon, that's for sure. I don't think we will. I think we're in good shape for a while.
Well, I must say, it is truly catastrophic. Baseball has been, currently delayed.
Well, that's
Spring
correct.
training was canceled.
I know this.
For me, that hurts.
It hits
that's
you hard.
right. Yeah.
Yes,
Well, you know, all sports.
Robert's our baseball fan.
All sports are just paused. Everything is paused as a general rule,
except football free agency.
Yes,
I'm loving that. It's very interesting.
I gotta say, I'm liking the moves my Lions have made.
Except for getting rid of Darius Slay.
Yes, well,
that's a mistake because
there's no way that they were going to be able to stay. It was either Slay or the coach. And since they'd already given the coach the seal of approval, he was gone.
That's a mistake. You can get another coach.
And I think they should probably.
A corner at that level of Darius Slay is hard fella to come back.
We're sliding down the rabbit hole, boys.
That's true.
Let's bring ourselves back here. I'm usually the one that takes us down the rabbit holes.
Well, look at it this way. We're starting with the rabbit hole. Maybe we'll get them all out of the way.
There's a good point to that.
Context. We were doing a little context.
That's
right.
right.
Please, Francis.
Putting us firmly into the moment that we are in.
Doing a good job being captain and bringing us back to the top.
That's right. Because I want to throw mine out here. As the captain, I get to decide when I go, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. This is one. Actually, when we put together our short lists, or not so short lists, of quotes we wanted to make sure made it into our cuts, this was the first one that came to mind for me. And I'm actually going to break my idiom, as Monty Python would say. It's not going to be pop culture oriented. It's not Star Trek or Babylon 5 or any of that sort of stuff here. I'm going to the history, to Benjamin Disraeli, believe it or not, British Prime Minister for Queen Victoria, 1860s and 70s, etc. Mm-hmm. He is the one that, after Prince Albert died, was probably the one and only minister who was able to eventually bring Victoria back to her people. Mm-hmm. She wore black the rest of her life. She reigned for another 40 years. And Disraeli did this because he said, people asked him, how did you do this? Because they didn't think it was possible. He says, well, flattery is best applied by the trowel. He would flatter her to death. That's not my quotation, mind you. But that's just kind of who he was. He was one of those pithy individuals, and my quotation from him is pithy. It's very brief, but it is so easy, so full of implications in life. And my quotation from him is very simple. It is, don't complain and don't explain. The Art of Manliness actually did a very good article on this.
Okay.
So if you wanted to give a shout out to one of our favorite websites, if you want to go there and see the article that they wrote about this, it's a very honorable, there's that code of honor, type of a thing, because you're basically taking a stance here. And this is, I guarantee you, this is true in the business world, even though most people cannot articulate it. Explanations are never that, even if they're intended to be that. Ultimately, in human relations, particularly in business, they're always seen as an excuse.
Yeah.
Always seen an excuse. An excuse always undermines the character of the person who is making that. And this is something that took me years and years and years and years to understand, because I would explain myself if something didn't go right. And I was always vilified for it. I couldn't understand why. I'm simply explaining to you the reason it didn't work. And I realized you're not understanding. They don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. That it's seen as an excuse, and it lowers your image. Why would you want to do that? Of course, nobody would. Don't complain and don't explain. Explanations kill respect. This is Disraeli, mind you. And we can talk about whether or not this is true or not. Yes.
So you're using it in a very specific context.
That is correct. That's right.
Because, honestly, I don't particularly care for this quote.
I understand. I knew it was potential of discussion.
Well, the reason I don't particularly care for this quote is it's a very broad, forward quote that you have taken to a very specific point, which is something F's up. Don't try and explain yourself. But I would say that you have to explain. When you are setting a course, you cannot just say, this is where we're going. If you don't like it, get the F out. You have got to provide a why.
That's right.
Yes.
But that's
the why.
But I suppose maybe I should qualify this. The explanation is, in this quotation, and in my intention, is in context with the complaint. In other words, you don't make excuses, is another way of putting this.
Yeah.
If an explanation is a broader term, as you're going to say, to explain something, you're going to explain why we do something. This is an explanation for something after the fact. Don't explain.
An explanation to me is an entirely different thing than an excuse.
Well,
and a complaint is not necessarily a bad thing either. Because a complaint can simply be, maybe we shouldn't do it this way. There's flaws here. Something that should be fixed. Now, that could be seen as entirely different from, hey, you guys are just screwing around. I don't like what you're doing.
Well, yeah.
Which is really most of what political discourse is today.
Bearing in mind, Disraeli, he's speaking from a political piece. And in the business universe in particular, that's where, and I've worked for guys many times, that these two things were just absolutely thou shalt nots. And it's one of those pieces of advice I have found to be very, very helpful and very, very accurate in many cases. Now you also know my background in the world.
Yes, I can see very much.
You know the guy. You know the folks I work for, and you know the, shall we say, flaws. Oh, I'm being so generous.
Yes. I like both of your pieces here that you've got. I have to compliment Robert. He's been watching his TED Talks.
I do on occasion, but really? I wasn't pulling that from a TED Talk.
How does Apple dominate the electronics world?
Yeah.
They tell the why.
Yeah.
Not the what. They don't tell what an iPhone does.
Yeah.
They tell why you need an iPhone.
Right.
That psychology that we crave the why. And it's something that I am starting to do in my work is if I'm doing training with people or I'm putting a new process, or I work in IT, guys, so listeners, I have to explain new things all the time. I like to try to start with a why. Why are we doing this? Why am I making all of you sit here and listen to me talk?
Oh, yeah.
Then I want to go to the what. So that is, Robert's right on the money.
Right.
That you do the why up front.
That's not in any way what I was intending.
But what I like what you got too, because it reminds me of, it's one thing to burn down the shithouse. It's correct. Another to install plumbing.
Well, that is exactly it. That's one of the reasons. It's maybe we should have done those two together, because it's that. It's exactly that.
Yeah. It's stop whining.
That's right.
It's don't whine. Don't make excuses.
Well, that's exactly it. That's what Disraeli's trying to say.
That's a modern day translation.
That's why I like it, because it's that. And you're right. If taken prima facie as the quote is written, you might think, well, wait a minute, that means more than that. No, that's when the intention is. It means exactly what you just said.
The quote is great because you understand the context.
Yes.
For everybody else, it's don't whine and don't make excuses.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we should kind of kick around is that, where's the virtue in that? Why is that such a great thing?
To not whine and not make excuses?
You betcha.
Well, to me, you did the whining, so I'll let you handle that. But the
okay.
No, he came up with the whining. He came up with the "don't whine" phrase.
Right. So you talk about why whining is bad, and you talk about the excuses.
So the excuses, as you rightly pointed out, it never works, because if you're at the point where you're making excuses, you've already been judged.
That's correct.
However, as I was talking about with the why, in every human endeavor, we have to know the why. We have to know what we are doing this for, because if we don't care.
Well, that's right.
So, if and essentially, that's what. To me, that's why we say don't explain. If I don't know the explanation behind something, I got to go look it up, because that's part of my nature. I like to know the why. Yep. I mean, really, that's what we're doing here, is discussing the why. That's the whole point of the
ultimately
discussion.
That's it. If you put us to one question, it's why.
Yeah. So for me, that's the meaning of life stuff, is the why, the explanation. That's why I love theology.
Yeah.
It's the explanation.
Right.
For what we believe and why we believe.
And it's logical. Should be.
I just love what you did with this one, too, because, this is what we do with tons of these.
Yeah.
I took a Clint Eastwood out of a movie. There's two kinds of people in this world, my friend, those with loaded guns and those who dig.
Yeah.
And then extrapolated that into this whole, conversation about slavery and free will and human rights and all that. And you've done the same thing
which is kind of our premise.
Yeah, and it's just tremendous. Here. But yeah, I mean, I'm at, like you're at the, you got to know the why, and I'm at the, hey, life sucks, put on a helmet kind of idea.
Yeah.
That, stop whining.
Well, that's right. Yeah, you would definitely, the not complain is in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Right. Man up, put your big girl panties on, and let's just do the job.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I scream at the traffic when nobody will get out of the left lane, but okay, I vented. This is the way this town is. Move on. Yeah, that's the way this town is.
That's it.
And I'll vent again tomorrow when they still won't get out of the left lane, but...
Right. And as I was saying earlier, whining is complaining without purpose.
Yes.
So...
Right.
And whining is very self-centered, too.
And very self-centered. Oh, yes.
Why me kind of whining is like,
why can't I get what I want?
Yes.
It's a perverted why question, one might say.
Well, and like so many things that are wrong with the world in general, once you focus on self, you've lost it, because nobody else cares about you.
That's right.
If all you're complaining about is you, nobody cares about
Is that not the nature of complaining? Usually it has some selfish arrangement.
Generally, because if you don't complain, generally it's because you don't have any interest in what's at stake.
Perhaps.
But you can complain in the sense that you can point out flaws. You can point out problems. But if you don't also point out what can we do to get better,
installing plumbing,
installing the plumbing,
install the plumbing,
then you are whining. Even if you are whining constructively in the sense that you're pointing out things that people maybe haven't seen. If you stop there, then
I mean, I have a solution for people to get out of the left lane.
Does it involve firearms?
It involves a much stricter testing regimen in the state of Kentucky for driver's licenses.
I do not believe any of us here would argue that would be a very, very virtuous thing.
Yes. Yeah. It'd be probably virtuous in most states.
That's correct. That's right.
So that's pretty awesome stuff, Francis.
I thought you might like
that.
Good. I've been that's been niggling around in the back of my head for a long, long time, and I really wanted to kind of lay it out there and see where are we going to go with this. And as always, I'm very pleased. I didn't expect any of that.
Yeah, I mean, we tied it to lots of other things, but Robert even tied it really to our discussions about gratitude.
Yeah.
That we've had.
Sure.
Discussions about the self and discussions about, the individual's relationship to society.
Mm-hmm.
So
because essentially, it's good that you say that, because essentially both of those things that we've said here, don't whine and don't make excuses, are selfish acts.
Yes.
That's why we don't do them. That's why we should not do them. That's why they're bad.
Pointless discussions of eternal questions. That's what we're best at.
Absolutely. We take that and just work with it.
So right into it.
All right. Are you next? You want to go next?
Can be.
Why don't you go next?
Robert.
Please.
Okay.
I like to follow up because I don't like to toot my own horn, but I think I'm really good at tying it all together.
You are. Well, we've been very successful with it so far. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, every time you've captained, you've deliberately gone last.
Yes, I have.
And I think that has served us well, and I see no reason to change horses in midstream, boys.
All right.
You're very good at tying the ribbon on everything.
That's good.
Once we put it out there.
Bring it home.
That's definitely your strength, Robert. So mine is a little different.
That's cool.
And from a considerably different kind of source.
We'll give Robert a challenge of tying it all together this time.
Yes. Listeners, I am a fan of very hard and heavy rock and roll music.
Something we've never discussed here,
Yes, we've never talked rock and roll. Francis likes some of my stuff.
I do. I'm more eclectic. Good music is good music is good music, and it transcends genre.
Yes.
There are certain genres you will not touch. I know I will enjoy good country music.
Yeah, no, I'm not big.
You won't go
Chris
there.
Christopherson or Johnny Cash, I'll do those.
Yeah.
But not much else.
See, I can see the Johnny Cash. It's the Chris Christopherson I'm having a problem with.
He's a great songwriter.
He
I
is.
like great songwriters, and I like great performers.
I would give you that. I'm surprised Waylon Jennings would not be in your wheelhouse, though, because he's kind of... I thought you might.
Waylon and Willie I can do.
I thought you might,
do a little Toby Keith. I've got a couple of Toby Keith discs. But I also have some eclectic stuff, too, because I always like... I like funk. I like musicianship. So
we all have that in common. We really, really do.
For example, not a big fan of Christina Aguilera. She has a heavenly voice.
Oh, she's very good. She's very good.
But not my kind of music.
No, that kind of music gives me a headache. But Robert, now your tastes are probably the most different from all of us because you're very much into
new wave, alternative music from the 80s.
Right. Yes. And all of us love the 80s because that kind of formed us.
Yeah.
But yours is a little different from that.
Yeah, I am very focused now. But in addition to that, I love me some bluegrass.
That's true. That was your origins.
I love me some particular symphonies.
Well, we didn't even talk classical music.
Some different classical music.
Beethoven's Eroica is still one of my favorites.
I love me some Brandenburg concertos by Bach.
Holst, The Planets.
There we go. That's,
well, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so our musical tastes are very varied. But yes, you are definitely the metalhead of the group.
Yes, in addition to Parliament Funkadelic or Charlie Daniels or...
And I do like me some Charlie Daniels, too.
That's correct.
Devil Went Down to Georgia is just a great song.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Uneasy Rider.
Yeah.
I love that. We could probably sing that one together. The whole thing straight through. That's one of the... It's great.
But I am kind of the metal guy. There's just something in the way my brain is wired and the way
we need to quote Uneasy Rider whenever we can find a way to do that.
That there's just something about the heavy music, especially when it's got this psychological edge to it. When it's about something internal or inside.
Well, Metallica is kind of like your go-to.
Yeah. But this quote is actually from Black Sabbath, when Ronnie James Dio took over for Ozzy Osbourne and stayed with him for 2 albums. He was one of their principal songwriters. And the song is The Mob Rules. And this is a lyric from that song. If you listen to fools, the mob rules. So that's always one that sticks with me. And not just because it's a great song, it's great Tony Iommi guitar piece, but it's one of those things that it's like all these... Clint Eastwood throwaway lines in these movies. It just sticks because there's something really inside it.
Profound, yeah.
There's a little kernel of that truth inside
sings, no pun intended.
Yeah. So, it's something I tell my kids and everything. It's like, if you listen to fools, the mob rules.
In a way, it's a very negative view of the general populace, the mob in that sense.
Yep.
There's valid reasons for that. When you look at what society does, not just politically, societally as a culture.
Well, we're living it right now in many respects.
In many respects, the run on toilet paper still astounds me. This is not a stomach or butt bug. All right,
and yet there's going to be plenty of toilet paper.
Yes,
you don't have to.
This is not the Soviet Union. We don't have to ration it. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So,
but that's a mob mentality.
But that's a mob. Yeah. For some reason, somebody got it in their head that you need tons and tons of toilet paper,
and the extremists came out. until the retailers did the right thing and realized, let's limit this. As they should have done earlier than they did, but it gobsmacked a few people.
Well, really, when you think about how fast this current crisis
absolutely, it was upon us.
Came upon us, once it hit the U.S., and not just California, once it made it across the country, that's when things got serious. When it hit Indiana and Kentucky, it was like the next day everything was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one day we're thinking, okay, well, let's just start. But then all of a sudden, all right, we're not taking any more chances.
Yeah, it was very, very quick. Yeah.
And in some ways, that's good because that whole flatten the curve thing, it may prolong some of the general strife, but it will decrease the intensity
of the pandemic itself.
So in some ways, the mob has some good points, but not always.
Well, I always like to do the P.J. O'Rourke, why he prefers the individual over the mob. The mob will never buy you lunch.
Right.
Well, you're exactly right. Well,
the mob will buy itself lunch.
Well, what you're talking about here with the mob, you're basically equating the mob with foolishness.
Yes.
And
foolish group behavior.
Groupthink, herd mentality.
Yes.
Those type of things are always dehumanizing. By their definition, they are. Because as you can see from those crazies, I'll call them that made the run on the toilet paper happen, there's not a lot of thought there. Right. It's simple, fire, ready, aim.
Yeah, and so much of the silliness in society is this groupthink.
Mm-hmm. All it takes is enough people to say the same thing.
When you think about, look at all the different kinds of silliness. We'll stay away from the political silliness because that's a totally different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just currently. I mean throughout the ages. But you look at some of the silly things that society has just glommed onto. Mm-hmm. The pet rock.
Oh yeah,
mood rings.
Mood rings.
They sold tons.
Yeah, if you're.
And these are 70s things.
Yeah, if you don't remember the 70s, you're going to have to Google that and look it up.
Bell bottoms.
And then you're going to go...
Ties 3 feet wide.
That's right.
When you look up pet rocks, you're going to go, was everybody in the 70s stoned out of their mind?
I think so.
And the answer is probably yes.
That's right. That's correct.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same idea as, somebody that jumps up on a stump or a chair and says, somebody get a rope. It's the same mentality.
It's the lynch mentality.
Yeah,
there's no question as to that.
So that's
and
why
a great number of people will do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a guard against that idea, that mentality of that lynch and that mob.
Well, because there is
it's fools.
When you have those fools here, what you're talking about here, that herd mentality is the absence of leadership.
So
absolute absence of leadership.
Yes. So, but why? See, to me, that's the more interesting. Why does this happen?
How is it able to happen?
Yeah.
Because you'd think we would be better than that.
Because relatively speaking, we are an educated country. Mm-hmm. Now granted, I think the quality of our education may not be as good as it was. Certainly is not as good as it was at the beginning of the 20th century. You look at the classwork and the courses that they took in high school, that was like graduate level today.
Well, as a general rule, the entire country is functionally literate. More or less.
Yes, but 100 years ago that was relatively true too.
Except for punctuation, I've noticed.
Well, I said functionally. Yes. I mean, you can read the signs most of the time.
Yes, but you know what? When I read those badly worded comments and tweets, I can't help but read them as written, and it drives me nuts.
Oh, I'm totally with you.
I'm like, wait a minute. There's supposed to be a period in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Stop that sentence.
Yeah, there's an apostrophe between that we and that RE. Mm-hmm. So, but anyways, but why does this happen? What is it about the modern mind that causes this kind of mob mentality that is so dangerous?
I think it's an evolutionary holdover from the time that we were tribal. There's that word again.
We're still tribal.
We still are. That's correct. That's why it won't go away. Is because, think about it, millions
Safety in numbers.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah,
Think
survival
about it.
Mechanism.
It's a survival mechanism. That's why we have it. That's why, the herds, if you look at the herds in Africa of gazelles, they stay together because they know that only the periphery will the lions reach. If you can stay in the center, it's actually very helpful in avoiding tickets, by the way, speeding tickets.
Yeah, stay in the middle.
Stay in the middle amongst the herd, and the predators will take the ones on the outer edges.
Don't be the fastest guy.
Don't be the fastest guy.
Yes.
I like being behind somebody else that's at least moving.
That is correct. That's right. So it's the same dance. We really understand that there's safety in numbers, and coming together is the only way that keeps us safe. And then we go back there, I think.
And this is a bastardization of what is a very good instinct. Because as we've talked about many times,
it is.
Relationships are what make us different from the animals.
That's right.
We've talked about that a few times. And the fact that we have permanent, lifelong, deep, emotional connections with other people, not just romantic, but friendship.
That's right.
Brotherhood of Snakes and Otters, baby.
Brotherhood of Snakes and Otters. These things are what make us human. But to an extreme, they take our humanity away.
That's right. The tyranny of the majority. Ultimately, that's where this potentially leads
us into mob think, into group think.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that a true democracy, pure democracy, as Plato said, will not work.
Yeah.
It's not possible. It's mob rule.
Right, we've talked about that.
The weak will always be subsumed by the 51%.
Right. Yeah. Democracy is two wolves and a rabbit voting on what's for dinner.
That's exactly right. Oh, yeah. I love that. I hadn't heard that one before. That's a very good one.
Like P.J. O'Rourke would say, you'd throw away the rights of man for the little kids on the milk cartons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would.
It's emotional. It's direct. That's
right. Well,
a very neat anthropological point you've made.
It's an immediate thing too. Yeah. You notice that these mob rule things, like your lynching analogy, it's immediate and it's emotional. Yeah. There is no considerated opinion. If you were to force somebody to wait a day, the answer would very likely be different.
That's true, but I think it's also true though that mob rule can have a strong enough undercurrent that it becomes movements.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like, Pet Rock was not a 1 week thing.
No, that's right.
That went on for like an entire year or two, right?
Sure. Well, we remember it, yeah. So, we didn't have one, fortunately.
Yeah, I didn't either. I did, but I just went out to the driveway and picked one up, Well,
I
was too poor to have a Pet Rock. I had to go pick my own.
Yeah. Had to find it in the wild,
Yeah. So, yeah.
Domesticated yourself.
Yeah, I domesticated my rock myself.
Yes. Captured it in the wild. Did you release it back at some point to let it go back out?
I'm sure my mom did, yeah. But, sometimes mob rule, this undercurrent, it lasts for a long time. Sometimes it's a good thing, but it doesn't get self-corrected. And I think that's really where the problem becomes.
Right.
Yeah. In the presence of leadership, though.
Right. That almost always requires some kind of leadership.
That's ultimate.
Because you're right. I think that's a very good point that you had, was it's emotional.
That's correct.
You're subsuming your rationality inside your emotionality.
Right. Well, you're seeding it. You're giving it away.
You are joining. Basically, essentially, I don't want to be left out. That's what it boils down to.
It's the reptilian portion of our brain too that's taking over the rational part.
It's basically engaging biology. The flight, but instead of away, it's to. You're fleeing away from being too individualistic, too unique, and thus being left on the outside. Yeah,
being on the edge of the herd.
It's very hard to overcome.
It is, and it's true for us too.
I talked about this before, how much of a struggle it is for me to realize it's okay to be myself. I don't have to fit in.
Well, because outliers in this case here tend to be, even killed or marginalized at best. Yep. Even if you're absolutely right, unless you can gain an alliance with people and gain relationships with them, your way of thinking will never be taken seriously.
Yeah.
It's essential.
It's the difference between
no matter how rational.
Brutus and Antony. Brutus' speech was entirely rational.
That's correct.
Antony's speech is completely emotional.
That's correct.
And who wins the day?
That's correct.
Mob wins the
Even
day.
though the mob loved Brutus when he spoke.
Yes.
But Antony wiped it away. That's very good. I like that.
That's because Brutus is an honorable man.
Absolutely. Perfect. You were supposed to use your James Mason impersonation on that one.
I couldn't do that.
I was going to say, it's very good, yeah.
So,
okay, so good stuff, guys.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah. Francis and Robert, terrific.
So, we're up to me.
Yeah, what you got?
So, mine is a quote that probably many people have heard. Most people probably don't know where it came from. I didn't even know until Martin looked it up.
Yeah, we were doing show prep. We said, who? And then
okay. And that is that no plan survives contact with the enemy, which is actually a bastardization of a German general, von Moltke?
Helmuth von Moltke, the elder.
Yes. The elder. Yeah, the elder, yes. Not the younger, the elder.
Yeah, because there are two of them.
That's correct. Who would have thought?
Well, his son was one of the major forces in the early days of World War I, and this is 1880, his father.
So, his original quote was, "Therefore, no plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force. Essentially, no plan survives contact with the enemy."
Yeah, that version doesn't sing.
Or you can always do the Mike Tyson version.
Yes, which is?
Everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yes.
That's a pretty good Mike Tyson impersonation. That's good.
One of the reasons I like this...
It's interesting. Von Moltke?
Mike Tyson. Of course, now you didn't say it with a high, squeaky voice when you did it, but that's okay. So, the reason I like this is because it's a great reminder of how, especially in today's world where everything changes on a dime, like we talked about with how everything shut down on a dime from one day to the next, that you have to be prepared to adjust what you plan to do.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to be nimble, quick on your feet.
Flexible.
This is true whether...
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Yes, exactly.
Which is one of mine that it's like a mantra of the Marine Corps.
Yes, improvise, adapt, and overcome. And that is something that everybody needs to be able to do, because if you're not, you're going to get caught without any toilet paper. And then you got to run to the store and you find out everybody else has already bought it all.
And then and you wish that it was still the days of the Sears catalog, which are no longer there. It's kind of hard to wipe your butt virtually.
Yes, you can't wipe your butt with the internet.
That's correct.
Even though sometimes it looks like somebody did.
That's right.
So
you've got to buy books by discredited political authors.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I think the tax code is a good place to start.
Yes, the tax code is always
like they did in that movie 2012.
No, that was in
The Day After Tomorrow. That's right, The Day After Tomorrow.
I like that movie.
It was fun.
It's a goofy post-apocalyptic movie, but I like that kind of story.
That's correct.
So now the interesting thing to me is, I think this works perfectly well with both of your quotes.
Oh, do
tell.
So, don't whine, don't whine, don't make excuses.
That's right.
And yours was,
if you listen to fools, the mob rules.
Right. So, in both of these, I think they happen because you have not kept this in mind. All right, you have not been nimble of mind. Mm-hmm. When you look at, and really both of these cases are a lack of leadership.
Yes,
right?
Like you said, that's correct.
So, a leader is one who not only has a plan A, but they have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, a plan F, as many plans as they can come up with.
Well, I prefer to have as many backup plans as there are versions of the Enterprise. That's A, B, C, D, and E. See, I bet you were wondering if Star Trek was going to enter in. We found
out. Honestly, I almost did Spock on you a minute ago, but very good there. You got the Enterprise in.
That's right.
This is a reminder to me, in my personal life, I'm very big on setting goals. I love goal setting. I'm not very good at the goal achieving part, but man, I can write them up. Now, one of the things that I've examined my goals over the years, one of the things I've noticed is, two things I've noticed. One is I am very much too ambitious in the beginning. Too many goals, too short a time period, right?
Yeah. That's common, yeah.
And as I get older, I realize that even where I have achieved goals, it usually has taken longer than I thought it would. It's gone a different path, and it's all because no plan survives contact with the enemy. When you make a plan, God laughs. Mm-hmm. That's one of the old quotes. It's another version of this in a way.
The very same thing, yeah.
So the whole idea that you will do something exactly as planned can only happen if you are the only person involved in that plan. And even then, you're going to screw it up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we just don't... Because everything sounds good in our head. It's like when you explain comic book plots or Star Trek plots to somebody.
Yep.
Sounds perfectly logical and fine in your head until you say it out loud. Then you realize...
it's like, okay.
Well, yeah, let's move on. Different subject.
Never mind.
It just sounds incredibly goofy when you say that stuff out loud. And that's... plans are the same way.
It is in the execution, of course, as so many other things.
I don't know. I don't know that you can execute some of them well enough to not be goofy.
Ulysses S. Grant was famous for this. In fact, he's been talked of many, many, many times. One of the things that he brought that nobody else had, we've talked about this when we talked about him, is that before him, generals would go forth with these elaborate plans, Burnside is probably the most obvious. Get their nose bloodied and then you go run back under the bed.
Because they didn't know what to do. Grant refused to do that. He always planned. He was notoriously for, as soon as the shooting starts, he'd throw the plan away and adapt on the fly. Right. He was a great example of adapt, improvise, and overcome.
That's correct. And in fact, he changed military history because of that, because nobody had done that before.
Right. So when we think about the way the world works, no business will survive this current economic crisis. I mean, I've seen some estimates that the GDP will shrink by 25% this year.
Yeah.
That is unheard of.
That's correct.
Great Depression didn't have that kind of shrinkage in a single year. So, we are uncharted territories here. Now, whoever wins the presidency in November, assuming this is just a 6 to 12 month thing, is going to see a roaring year-over-year set of numbers next year.
Yep.
So they're going to look like a savior, whoever they are. And it's not because they're necessarily better, it's just they happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Sometimes
success is entirely that.
There are some fundamental strengths
to
the economy. It's just right now, if nobody's spending any money, none of those things are evident.
Right. Since we are largely a service-based economy, that's really going to hurt that.
Yes, bigger service base than ever before.
But even the retail economy, products. Yeah. My business, the business I work for, is entirely based on the retail economy. So I know we're going to see some very bad numbers. Now, I love what my CEO said today in an email. And it's basically, we're going to get through this. Everybody stay safe, work from home. We're going to use this time to take care of the things we haven't been able to take care of because we've been so busy.
Sure.
We're going to use this time to take care of projects and do all the things that we know need to be done, but just get put off.
Yeah.
And he said a very important thing. We're going to handsomely reward those who make it happen. Now, this is an attitude that I can get behind, not just because I work for the company and I hope to get handsomely rewarded.
Right.
It's adapting to the circumstances.
That's right.
It's not saying, oh my God, the sky is falling.
Yeah, or my hair's on fire.
Or my hair's on fire. Thank you, Michael Jackson. And oh my God, I got to cut costs, which in most businesses is headcount.
That's correct.
That's where your biggest cost is.
And that is ultimately what happened in the Great Depression.
Yes.
And that's what led to the actual depression itself.
Yeah. And you have to remember, somebody pointed this out, the stock market is not the economy.
No.
Exactly.
That is correct.
That's very important.
Jobs are ultimately the economy.
Now, because of the nature of this particular slowdown that's going to happen, it's going to be the same thing. Because obviously the stock market has tanked. We've lost all the gains made since Trump came into office, and then some. But for now, those companies that manage to hang on to their employees, they're going to gain something that they couldn't have planned for, that they have adapted and improvised for. That is, they're going to gain some incredible loyalty of their employees.
Oh, you betcha. Yeah, you got to be willing to play the long game here.
Yes.
And recognize
that's something that's been missing from corporate relationships.
That's correct.
For 30, 40 years.
That's
easily
correct,
and more.
because they have been seen as the first one to kick your butt off to the curb.
So if you are not going to use the quarterly results as your only guide to how to run your corporation, which is what most of them do. Partially that's because there's a fiduciary responsibility, and right now and for years, decades, that have been judged entirely on quarterly results. So you can make another $10 word, fiduciary.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So taking the long view, not following the mob,
That's
the
right.
fools.
Keeping your leadership.
Keeping the leadership going. Not bothering to whine about how things are going.
That's right.
Yeah, there is and
or making excuses.
Your CEO's leadership example is, I'm seeing it in other places.
And it's happening in other places.
There's a new generation of leadership that's really saying, look, the real value here is the people we brought on.
Right, because this is an artificial hit to the economy.
Yes.
Correct. And it will pass.
And it will pass.
Because, again, it is different from the Great Depression.
Correct.
Great Depression is, hey, all of a sudden, all this food's gone from Middle America because of the Dust Bowl.
There's that.
The Dust Bowl, and then there's the war
the tariffs,
financing.
the taxes.
Yes.
All these different things. It was a perfect storm to create that.
Right.
And it was almost, well, with the exception of the Dust Bowl, all it was man-made.
Yeah. But the economy has so few sectors then, too. This is one thing that I've always thought about trying to fathom the Depression is, the economy is hugely dependent on the agriculture sector then.
Well, yeah, it's almost exclusively.
Far more than it is now.
Far more. I mean, the agriculture is like a little tiny sliver of the economy today, but back then it's 30-40%. Mm-hmm. That then feeds directly to transport, which is the railroads. Mm-hmm. Railroads.
Yes, you have no food. You can't. Who cares about the railroads?
Right. There's nothing for the railroads to carry from Middle America to the East Coast or to the West Coast. So when the Dust Bowl hits and there's no product, then there's no transport. If there's no transport, there's no demand for steel to make new transport.
Yes.
And there's no demand for coal to power it. So you have that domino effect.
Yeah, because everything is too connected.
Yes. Where today the economy is so diverse.
That was the word I was looking for, diversification.
Yeah, you almost have to have something like the coronavirus to be able to impact all sectors of the economy.
Right, because, hey, we're still growing food. It's still going to be there. Yep. We're still going to transport it by truck. We're still going to transport it by train.
Grocery stores are open.
Yeah, nice. We're still going to transport it by airplane. So you've got all of these separate
We're still making toilet paper.
Yeah.
Hope so.
That's right.
There were people posting pictures of these empty shelves in Venezuela and then empty shelves in the U.S. over the weekend going,
It's not the same thing.
And it's like, then other people were responding back, yes, over the weekend, there were empty shelves in America.
On Tuesday, they were full.
They were full again. That's the difference.
That's correct. Right. Yeah, it's right.
So,
and one is systemic. One is just following the fools.
A blink. Following the fools.
So to me, I think my quote really, unintentionally, has done a fantastic job of tying these two things together.
You're such a wonderful cleanup hitter with regards to these episodes.
I thank you for the baseball analogy. I appreciate it.
I thought you might like that. We're not getting any otherwise.
So that's right. Cecil Fielder?
Yes. Miggy Cabrera.
Oh, Miggy Cabrera.
I'll pass the 46. Speaking of baseball, we are drinking, because baseball and bourbon always go, because bourbon goes with everything.
Well, bourbon correct. Always goes with everything.
So I am drinking Maker's 46. I think you guys are still on Four Roses.
I had Four Roses. I finished it because it was kind of left over, and
I know we killed that bottle.
And I'm gonna go back to this 46. I've drank it with you before. I like it a lot. I'm doing it neat this time, no ice, which is not usually.
There's still some in the freezer over there.
I might think about it, but Scotty drank his scotch neat. Why not, drink bourbon neat every once in a while?
Some will tell you that you need a little bit of just a little bit of the chill and a little bit of the water to help bring out the flavor.
A little, but
I've never really tested that. That's something we should try one night. But anyways, so a glass to things that have been delayed, to those certainly that are ill. Hopefully they all get better. Hopefully,
that's right.
Very few in the future will get this virus, because one of the things that makes this bad, it's not just the long incubation, but this does have a higher death rate than other diseases. The yearly flus.
Yeah. Those who are vulnerable here are more vulnerable than they usually are for other things.
It's the people with the underlying conditions a little
much harder. Yes.
Than influenza usually does.
Yes. So a toast to those things that have been put on hold, and to health of those who are listening.
Amen.
Yep. And to the underlying systemic strength of the American economy, it will be back.
Yes.
It will be back.
If businesses can remember that no plan survives contact with the enemy, not whine.
That's right.
Not make excuses, and not follow the mob, the fools. Yeah, it's going to hurt. The bottom line is going to take a beating for the next couple of years. But if they absorb that, and government may have to help as much as we are, almost in our bones opposed to that sort of thing.
But that's the norm. This is the abnormal.
I'm, the rule book has kind of been thrown out.
It's the most unusual situation.
It is. But if we can keep our heads about us,
space, yes,
and adjust our plans as we move along, we can recover from this.
Oh yes,
it's going to hurt some people. It's absolutely going to hurt some people.
Yeah, I'm really
but I think it could hurt fewer if we keep our heads about us.
Yeah,
that's part of the depression.
Yeah,
people didn't keep their heads about them, and the 20s were so good that what happened in 29 with the crash of the stock market and all that stuff started snowballing, and the government intervention in that case did not help. Well, exacerbated.
Hoover was inept, unfortunately.
Well, it wasn't just Hoover, but even some of the things that Roosevelt did economists will tell you, actually extended
yes, neither one of
the
them.
Depression.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of these things when you talk about flattening the curve that I've heard about the economy is that classic Keynesian model of keep it off the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, try to keep it up. Government intervention to keep the economy off the bottom. There's starting to be a school of thought of that all that does is stretch it out. Let it hit bottom because it's going to bounce.
Well, and
economies bounce better than dead cats.
They do. They do.
That's a good image. I like that. That's very interesting.
For you cat people, I'm sorry, but you can make the philosophical argument either way on that because the harder the bounce, that means the more people you're going to hurt in the short term.
Yeah.
So you have to balance how many people you hurt in the short term, how hard, with an overall. Let's not make it as bad as it could be. The case is: do you lay off 25% of your workers, or do you take a 25% pay cut for everybody else? Everybody keeps their job.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's essentially the argument.
And that's again that whole argument about what's the government's role when the economy gets rough.
Right. And if it's one sector,
what levers do you push and all that stuff? And again, that's the idea. Well, let's keep it off the bottom and let's do this.
It's still trial and error.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
And maybe
because government cannot control what we do, and the economy is still largely consumer driven, which is why this is a broad based thing.
It's an
organism.
organism.
Consumers,
they're
staying home. They have to.
Yeah, it's like I said. It's like trying to grab a chicken in the barnyard.
Yeah. So again, no plans for eyes contact with the enemy, and I think this is one of the best examples of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, not only have you tied all three of these together, but you've made it relative to the exact time in which we're living. Bravo, sir.
Well, thank you,
Robert. You're terrific, bro.
I appreciate the accolades. I try. I do my best. You know me. I like the big picture stuff. I like to tie it all together.
That's what we're about. That's what we want to do.
I think one of my strengths in my job is being able to see the big picture, tie all the various pieces together, understand how it all works together. It
requires vision, which is something sorely lacking in the world today.
Yeah, vision. Vision's a good word.
Yep.
Vision is very much a part of all three of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always like phrasing myself as like in volleyball, the setter. I pop it up in the air, and Robert slams it over the net for the point. So,
well, I appreciate that. So, Francis, what's up next?
Speaking of vision, our heroes is next time. It's back to that. This is one I've been wanting to do for a long time, although, Martin, you're going to captain this one here. Winston Churchill.
Oh, boy.
Now, there's so much.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, so much that we can do with this guy here. He is also complicated. He is somebody that doesn't fit into convention very well. He's universally beloved in many ways, but he was very unique in many ways.
He's universally loved after the fact.
That's correct. That's right, because he was not at the time.
Winston Churchill is one of the giants that strode across the 20th century.
That's correct. You cannot, for lots of reasons, not just the war, although that was, as he would
2
say.
Wars.
That's correct. Although that was, as he would say, his finest hour.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. So join us next time.
Thanks for being with us here every week at Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Be sure to spread the word on your social media accounts. Follow us and retweet us. We are on Instagram and on Twitter at Snakes and Otters.
Let your friends know that they can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Just search Snakes and Otters Podcast to find us, and please remember to leave us your comments and reviews. It helps people find us.
And you can always send us an email at snakesandotterspodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Martin.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Catch us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.